All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for being here today and for your interest in the California Sea Grant 2024 Aquaculture Awards funding opportunity. My name is Madeline Wampler. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a program analyst for California Sea Grant based out of San Diego, and I will be running today's webinar. I'm also joined today by our director, Shauna O, our assistant director, Rose Madsen, and Rose will be available to answer any budget questions that come up during today's webinar. And then my wonderful team members, Leon Gua and Tanya Torres, who will also be here to provide technical assistance and help me monitor the Q&A. Thank you all for tuning in today and for your interest in this funding opportunity. So before I dive into the content of today's webinar, I wanted to note a few things relating to the content of these slides in relation to the RFP. The information in this presentation is accurate as of today, February 8th, 2003. The timeline and details of the 2024 RFP contained herein are subject to change, and any updates to the timeline or the RFP will be listed on the RFP webpage, which I will have Tanya share with you in the chat. And we urge potential applicants to refer to the RFP itself when preparing applications and to not solely rely on the information in this presentation. All right, so the objective of this informational webinar is to provide an overview of the request for proposals, review important application components, and answer any questions that you may have about the funding opportunity and application process. We have a few ground rules and guidelines for you today, and if you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature to reach out to one of our team members who can assist you. All participants are automatically muted during the presentation, and we ask you to please ask questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A box, which is located at the bottom of your screen next to the raise hand feature. And live transcription is enabled, which you can show or hide depending on your preferences. Recording of this presentation will be made available within a few days on the RFP page located on our website. And we ask that you please reserve any really specific questions for email, and you can reach us at sgproposal@ucsd.edu. All right, so I'm briefly going to give you a little bit of background information on our program. California Sea Grant was established through the National Sea Grant College and Program Act of 1966, which authorized the establishment and operation of the Sea Grant programs. California Sea Grant's mission is to provide the information, tools, training, and relationships needed to help California conserve and sustainably prosper from our coastal and marine environments. In alignment with our strategic goals, California Sea Grant touches on a variety of areas. As our name indicates, we provide grants and funding to the larger marine and coastal research community in California to meet our research mission. We also provide fellowships, mostly at the graduate and postgraduate level, to meet our education mission. And we also focus a lot of our work on outreach. So we have a lot of programming and communication and extension as well. And I think, Tanya, if you could also drop the link to our current funding opportunities page in case you want to hear more about what other funding and fellowships are currently available in addition to the Aquaculture Awards. All right, so now diving in a little bit more into the details of this funding opportunity. This RFP is focused on proposals that address goals and objectives specific to aquaculture in the Sustainable Fisheries and Aquaculture section of our 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. And please note that we are not accepting proposals related to salmonid restoration and enhancement at this time. We anticipate funding between 2 to 4 projects contingent upon receipt of anticipated funds from NOAA. And the duration of a project request is typically 2 years, though requests for a 1-year award will also be considered. Project budgets may request a maximum of $150,000 per year, and that $150,000 may include funds to provide a stipend for one graduate student per year. Research projects are required to provide 25% in matching funds from non-federal sources. And we strongly encourage you to work with your sponsored projects office as you work on your budget. So here's an overview of all of the key dates and deadlines for this funding opportunity. Letters of intent are due via EC grant on March 14th, 2023 by 5 p.m. Pacific time. Full proposals are due via EC grant on June 6th, 2023 by 5 p.m. Then the full proposal review period will occur between June and late August 2023. Applicants will be notified of recommendations to fund projects in September 2023, and then projects are expected to begin on or after February 1st, 2024. So how do you know if you're eligible to apply to this funding opportunity? Eligible applicants include faculty and academic staff from universities and scientists from research institutions throughout California. Only applicants who have submitted a letter of intent may submit a full proposal, and applicants may submit more than one letter of intent / full proposal, but if selected, only one award will be made to the principal investigator. And specific to this funding opportunity, the applicant must include a partnership with an aquaculture practitioner. So for this opportunity, California Sea Grant encourages projects that are likely to yield measurable impacts to the local economy, community, and environment. To that end, each proposal must identify and collaborate with an aquaculture practitioner. This is someone who is familiar with the existing data and/or resources central to your proposed research, somebody whose work requires the application of scientific information, particularly the information, data, and findings that will result from your proposed project. And these can be individuals who work in the commercial or private sector, is affiliated with nonprofit organizations, or a member of public sector community-based aquaculture program. PIs must include a corresponding letter of commitment from one or more aquaculture practitioners. And the type of outreach and engagement and the role of the aquaculture practitioner will be determined and defined by the PI, and the activities should complement the proposed research. If you'd like to discuss any of ideas that you may have for potential aquaculture practitioners, or if you have any issues identifying one, please reach out to stproposal@ucsd.edu. We also encourage you to reach out to a few of our extension specialists, Carrie, Luke, Kevin, and Teresa, if you have any interest in collaborating with them on these projects, or to perhaps get some feedback on your proposal idea. Teresa Talley is located in San Diego, Carrie Culver in Santa Barbara, Kevin Johnson in San Luis Obispo, and Luke Gardner is based out of Moss Landing. And you can find a little bit more about the work that they do on our website, which Tanya will share the links for, and you can also find their profiles linked in the RFP webpage. All right, so I know that was a lot of information. So before I move on, I'm going to pause here for questions. Please use the Q&A feature to drop in your questions that you have. And just looking ahead, we will next cover the priority focus areas and topics, the application components, and the evaluation and selection process. So if you have any questions specific to those items, maybe just hold off until our next break after that section. Any questions? All right, so we have one question. Thank you for running the webinar. When reaching out to an extension specialist Do you recommend choosing our initial contact based on their location, if we are in the same area, or if their expertise most matches up with your project proposal? Thank you for that question. I would say perhaps focus more on whether their expertise matches up with your project proposal. So in some cases, maybe that does align with their geographic location as well. But I guess don't be concerned if perhaps, Luke up in Moss Landing, maybe he might have expertise relevant to your project, even if your project might not be based out of that area, if that makes sense. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you do, or if you think of anything, just go ahead and drop those in and we'll tackle those in the next pause that we have for Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and move on now to dive more into the priority areas and objectives of this RFP. So let's see. All right, applicants must propose to conduct research that addresses the sustainable fisheries and aquaculture focus areas, goals 1 and 2, from our 2024 through 2027 strategic plan. And our acronym for that focus area is SFA. So I'll try to use that from now on. So SFA goal 1 is California's fisheries, aquaculture, and seafood systems, and the environments that support them are environmentally, economically, and socially more sustainable and resilient to future change through the facilitation of partnerships and the co-production of knowledge. SFA goal 2 is California's fishing, aquaculture, and seafood industries have evidence-based information, partnerships, and tools needed to support decision-making and a sustainable path forward through community engagement, collaboration, and education. The priority research objectives for this funding opportunity include causes, influences, and/or solutions related to multi-stressors, in particular those focused on pathogens, harmful algal blooms, and environmental contaminants. Quantification of potential ecosystem services associated with aquaculture. Social and/or economic perceptions of the role of aquaculture in California communities. Opportunities and challenges for co-locating aquaculture with other coastal and ocean uses. Understanding the human health benefits and risks associated with new and emerging aquaculture products. And lastly, assessment of native species aquaculture in a commercial setting. In addition, proposals should include training components surrounding the participation of students and/or early career individuals and/or outreach as much as is feasible. And as much as feasible, aim to address our diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility cross-cutting focus area, goals 2 and 3. Goal 2 is across our staff and network, California Sea Grant builds a program where a diversity of lived experiences are represented, particularly Indigenous, underserved, and underrepresented identities in marine and coastal sciences, thereby facilitating a culture of belonging and equitable support. DEJA Goal 3 is California Sea Grant and its network co-produce knowledge, create access to scientific information, and support research and scholarship priorities of value to a diversity of communities focused on Indigenous, underserved, and underrepresented people. Lastly, when developing your proposal, we strongly encourage you to review the research priorities of the Resources Agency Sea Grant Advisory Panel, known as RASGAP, which Tanya will also drop the link for in the chat. Thank you, Tanya. RASGAP is codified in the California state law with the purpose of advising and assisting California Sea Grant. Input from RASGAP is directed towards identifying and meeting priorities for funding according to the needs identified by state resource protection and management agencies. The RASGAP panel will review the research proposals and provide a resource protection and management relevant view of proposal value, which I will go over in more detail when I discuss the proposal review process. So again, I highly recommend that you review the RASGAP research priorities when developing your proposal. All right, so our first required application component is the letter of intent due by 5 p.m. Pacific time on March 14th via EC Grant. Letters of intent have a 2-page limit, and they will allow California Sea Grant to gauge interest in topics that may be submitted. The letter must provide the name of the applicant and contact information, title of the project, a brief discussion of the proposed research topic and approach, including what priority topics and/or SFA goals the project will address, any aquaculture practitioners that you have already identified or plan to contact, and the approximate funding amount to be requested. In the EC Grant submission platform, you will also be asked to submit 5 potential non-conflicted reviewers. And a response acknowledging the receipt of the letter of intent will be sent to the applicant, but no feedback will be provided. So next, we will then have full proposals due via EC Grant on June 6th, 2023 by 5 p.m. Pacific time. And please note that applicants will not receive access to the full proposal submission portal in EC Grant until a few days after the letter of intent submission deadline. And only applicants who submitted a letter of intent are eligible to submit a full proposal. And here's a summary table of the key components of the full proposal, but I do strongly encourage you to reference the RFP webpage for all of the details surrounding each of these components. So you are required to submit a signed institutional cover page, identify California Sea Grant focus areas relevant to your project, provide a project summary, a 12-page project narrative, and 2-page CVs for all key personnel. So this includes PIs, co-PIs, associate PIs. You'll need to provide a minimum of 1 aquaculture practitioner letter of commitment, a 2-page outreach and engagement plan, and letters of support are optional, but strongly encouraged, especially for projects that have multiple partners. And continuing on here, the full proposal also requires a budget and budget justification, a data management plan of no more than 2 pages, an environmental compliance questionnaire, and permits. And please note that copies of all permits are required for the proposed project activities. And you'll also need to provide current and pending support. And last but not least, an optional demographic questionnaire. So all of the full proposals will be reviewed by an outside panel of technical experts. Full proposals deemed fundable by the technical panel will be reviewed by RASGAP, the Resources Agency Advisory Panel I referenced earlier, for state management relevance. The evaluation criteria include alignment of proposed projects to RFP research priorities at 30%, technical scientific merit at 30%, outreach and engagement at 20%, diversity, equity, inclusion at 10%, overall qualifications of the applicant at 5%, and lastly, project costs at 5%. We hope to notify all applicants of their selection status in September of 2023, and then selected projects would start on or after February 1st, 2024. So the actual selection of the proposals for funding will occur in rank order unless the proposal is justified to be selected out of rank order based on one of the following factors, or one or more of the following factors. So availability of funding, balance or distribution of funds, which we will consider based on geographically by the type of institution, partners, focus area, and project types. Also targeting gaps in priority strategic plan goals and objectives, addressing the DASIA goals from our strategic plan, including fostering partnerships with Indigenous, underserved, and underrepresented people, and applicants' prior award performance, and lastly, environmental compliance. So the adequacy of information necessary for NOAA staff to make a NEPA determination. All right, so before I wrap up and open up back for questions, I wanted to show you a demo of how to use eSeaGrant and submit your application materials. And Tanya, if you wouldn't mind sharing the link to eSeaGrant in the chat, that would be great. So when you go to eSeaGrant, you will have an option to either log in with your existing account information, log in without a password, or register if you don't have an account yet. And if you don't have an account, the registration page is pretty simple. You'll just need to provide your first name, last name, affiliation, and then it'll walk you through a stepwise process to create your account and set up a password. You will then receive an email once the account has been set up. And if you don't receive an email, before you're reaching out to us, make sure that you check your spam folder because sometimes those emails show up in the spam section. All right, so once you log into your account, if you're using the old dashboard view, which you can see in sort of the top right corner, it'll tell you if it's old or new dashboard. So if you're using the old dashboard view, you will see under current tasks, the request for proposal, RFP for the 2024 Aquaculture Awards. And the way eSeaGrant works is that the letter of intent is considered the pre-proposal stage of this RFP. So that's where you'll go to submit the letter of intent and simply just click the Add Proposal blue button on the right-hand side. And then if you are using the new dashboard feature, I just wanted to quickly show you what that screen looks like. So it's pretty similar, but you'll see on the left sidebar, there's a drop down for the funding opportunities. So you'll navigate to the research funding category, and you'll see again that the Aquaculture Awards pre-proposal option is there, which you can then click and click the Add button to start filling out the letter of intent. So once you click that Add button, a box will appear on your window that says to start a new proposal, enter the project title and click Continue. So for this, I just called it a test proposal and then click Continue. And then once you do that, a new page will open up and that will show you the RFP call title, your proposal title, and it will have all of the letter of intent components that you will then fill out. And so you can navigate through all of the letter of intent components using that left sidebar, and every option with a red dot left on the left is where you will fill out and upload all of the required materials. And also, I just wanted to point out that you have the option to add collaborators, which you'll see the button on the top right there, and that will allow multiple people to help you fill out the application and be submitted as a collaborator when you do that. All right, so the very last but important step is to make sure that you go down to the very bottom of that left sidebar to the submission preview box and double check that all of your proposal is complete and accurate, and make sure you actually click the submit button, which is in the top right there on the screen. And that makes sure that your letter of intent is submitted properly, and we will be notified that you have done so. And then once you log out or navigate away from that letter of intent submission page, you will see that back in your main home screen under the research funding category that you now have an in progress proposal under that funding opportunity section. So that's where you can go in and edit, delete, etc. that proposal. And I just wanted to reiterate again that only applicants who submitted a letter of intent will be eligible to submit a full proposal. So once we open that full proposal stage, the applicants who submitted LOIs will then see the full proposal option on this dashboard, and we'll go through the same process of filling out those items and submit the proposal. All right, well, that is all I have for you. And just as a brief reminder, the webinar was recorded and will be linked to our website in the next few days. We also encourage you to sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on any information from California Sea Grant. And please also just monitor the website for any updates relating to this funding opportunity. So I'm now going to open it back up for questions. And if you don't have any lingering questions, you're welcome to hop off now. But yeah, we're obviously way ahead of schedule. So we can take as much time as we need to answer your questions. All right, so we have some questions coming in. The first is, are there any specific requirements or qualifications for the 5 suggested reviewers? I guess when you choose your 5 suggested reviewers, keep in mind sort of the expertise and general field of your proposed project, and perhaps find someone who would be non-conflicted but still able to, review that proposal and be able to have the expertise to make a decision about the scientific rigor and the content of it. So that would be my recommendation. Anyone else on my team have any suggestions for like requirements for those reviewers? Please jump in. Leon?
It's just important that those reviewers don't have a conflict of interest with you or any key personnel on your team, because that would disqualify them from being able to review your particular proposal. So non-conflicted reviewers is another important element.
Great, thanks, Leon. And also, I didn't mention this, but in the form and EC grant, you do also have the opportunity to maybe highlight someone who you don't recommend as a reviewer, and that also will help us flag if you do know someone who would be a conflicted reviewer. For example, you can help us flag that by indicating that in the form. I see. Thank you, Rose, for answering. We have a question about our subawards to the aquaculture practitioners allowed. And Rose said, yes, this would be allowable, but Sea Grant Extension Specialists would not be eligible to receive a subaward. Thanks, Rose. Any other questions? I know that was a ton of information, but oh, we do have one. Can you elaborate on native species aquaculture? So for that priority area, we are hoping to see proposals that are looking at using native species native to that area or the state of California for aquaculture, but specifically commercial aquaculture and not necessarily restoration aquaculture. If you do have more specific questions on maybe some ideas you have surrounding that, I would suggest you perhaps reach out to one of those 4 extension specialists Yeah, I'm trying to think, for example, Olympia oyster aquaculture is very up and coming right now. So perhaps some more research surrounding, uh, Olympia oyster commercial aquaculture or aquaculture for commercial purposes would fit under that category. Any other questions? If not, feel free to hop off. We'll stick around for a little bit longer, make sure there aren't any lingering questions. But thank you all so much for attending. Really appreciate it. And again, don't hesitate to reach out via email if you have any questions about the submission and process, budget information, etc. Thanks, Janet. All right, I think